Good afternoon. My name is Councillor Anthony Kelly. I'll be chairing today's hearing. I'm also joined by my colleagues, Councillor Aminat Jammu and Councillor Jonathan Ball. Alison Love is a legal advisor to the subcommittee, and Keith Brumfield is the clerk to the subcommittee and will be minuting the meetings. In accordance with procedure, I'll invite the licensing authority to present the application. Then I'll invite the premises to make representations and any questions. And then I'll invite parties to briefly sum up. At the end of the hearing, the subcommittee, accompanied by the legal advisor and the committee clerk, will retire to consider its decision. The decision will begin at the end of the meeting and confirmed within 5 working days. If we're unable to come to a decision, you'll also be notified of that within 5 working days. So if we could go to Ms. Anjali Garcha from the Licence Authority to just provide some factual clarification on the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Haider Dastpesh has made an application for a premises licence in relation to the Vale the Vale Mini Market, located at 149 The Vale, Acton, London W37RH. 2 representations have been received, and these are as follows. One from Ealing Council Licensing Enforcement and Compliance Team, and the other from an interested party. The licensable activities hours applied for are as follows. So for supply of alcohol off the premises, Monday to Sunday, 8 AM to 2300 hours. The subject premises is a grocery store and it's not located within a special policy area as defined in the council's statement of licensing policy. If there's anything else I can assist you with, Chair.
That's great. Thank you very much, Anjali. Yes, over to the applicant, who I believe is represented by Mr. Hasjini. You may want to just reintroduce yourself. Thank you.
My name is Bessin Aydini. I work for Atlas Licensing. We made the application on behalf of our client, Haider Dastpesh. The application was made on 28th of March this year. And our position is that we don't actually understand why the objection was to refuse this license. So I'll hand it over to you because I couldn't see any justifiable reasoning for it. We can't hear you, Keith.
£1 for every time. Have you brought any, obviously you've got the applicant with you, but have you brought any other witnesses or anybody speaking in favour?
No.
No, that's fine, no problem. Yes, really, we have some questions. We'll ask some questions of the nature of the application. So if I could go to Mr. Deer.
Yes, Chair. I think the applicant is on the understanding that it's already been refused. That was his words, and he doesn't understand why it's been refused. But
well, I suppose I know that's what he said, but he doesn't understand why it hasn't been.
It was recommended for refusal.
Yeah. The objections. He'd like to. If you'd like to ask him about the application, Mr. Deer.
Indeed, Chair. Thank you. A couple of points. One, has the applicant or his agent read the licensing policy because the hours sought are outside the core hours for the area? And 2, can you tell us something about Mr. Dastpesh's experience in the licensing trade?
Mr. Bessin.
Okay. First of all, this is not what's being mentioned in the objection. The objection is to do with the applicant being linked with whomever caused whatever issues 3 years ago.
Okay, that's right. I suspect we'll come to that, but obviously, Mr. Deer, and it's normal practice to ask an applicant what they know about licensing policy and the operation of a off license.
Okay.
Shall I explain?
Do you want him to speak directly? I can ask
Well,
him.
either or, yeah, but I think you
Hi.
understand, yeah.
Let me, first of all, hello to everyone in the room. Well, actually, I'm in supermarket business as a selling, or as a used to be assistant, supermarket assistant. And since 2-3 years, I'm just doing the designing, setting up the shop outside of London, setting up the business, and so many of the suppliers and importing, exporting the fridge, shelves, equipment belongs to the shoppers. Well, I believe I've got enough experience in the 12 years about the supermarket. As you can find out from the police emergency, as a customer underage came to the shop asking for a cigarette, we didn't provide them. I've got enough proof of references.
Maybe perhaps obviously Mr. Day and myself be interested in what you understand by the licensing objectives, and maybe you'd want to draw on your experience. Have you done a personal licenses course?
Yeah, well, actually, regarding your objection, I don't know the people at all. I don't know.
No, we're not talking about that. At the moment, nobody's objecting to anything at this current point. It's about
experience. Yeah, that's as I explained it, for the experience of the working in a supermarket. I used to work in a off-license. Well, I know how to recognize the people under the age, whoever, I recognize them. Even as I explained it, if 2 nights ago, customer came, asked for a cigarette, it was, it looked like underage, I didn't give them, and they didn't want to leave the shop. I called the emergency. I called them, and they told them to leave the shoppers, as the proof was 3-4 nights ago. Well, I've got enough experience to realize the people who is underage don't provide the alcohol, cigarette.
And you just came to London recently, because you imagined there's somewhere else.
Yeah, I mentioned it, even outside the London, I have the shop. I know the enough experience for the people to realize them, and do not sell the alcohol, do not sell the cigarette.
Maybe we'll come back to that. But Bob, would you like to ask and explore any other themes at the moment, sir?
Just 2 quick questions, Chair. One, has Mr. Darpesh got a lease on these premises? And 2, how long has he been involved at this shop?
Well, since 1st of February, I start with the solicitor, which I've got all the documents, emails. I deal with the landlord. I paid the deposit from the 1st of February. I'm entered to the premise, which the lease is almost finished. And even I wasn't been in the Ealing area at all. I just had a shop in outside the London. I sold it out in a Portsmouth. I've got a lease belong to that shop as well.
Okay, what's the name of the landlord that you've got the lease with?
Mr. Lubov. Mrs. Lubov, sorry.
The landlord, current landlord.
Yeah, current landlord Lubov, and outside London, Mr. Salim.
It's okay about outside London, it's not a problem, Mr. Yes.
Yeah, Mrs. Lubov, yeah. She's Ukrainian. Well, the reason she hasn't signed it yet, she's traveling abroad to the Ukraine. She's going to come back very soon.
Okay, thank you. No other questions at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Miss Brennan, have you got any questions to the applicant?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just double check. Thank you, Chair.
A little bit of buffering going on, but it's okay.
Okay. I would like the applicant specifically to explain what he understands by the 4 licensing objectives and the impact that that has.
5 licensing.
Prevention of the crime, discover public safety from noisiness, protection children from the harmless. Well, this is of course children as well. When I go to the shop, even if I see someone to drink in front of the shop, I don't allow them to go. I don't leave the people drinking to wait in front of the shop. If I see the people who are drinking a lot, I don't provide them more alcohol. I don't just want to look after my business. I don't want to even hurt the people as well. I don't want to hurt neighbors. I look after the safety of the area.
Anne?
I don't know if you've heard that he mentioned the 4 licensing objectives. I don't know if you've heard them all clearly.
Well, I just mentioned it regarding a public safety and what the example, overcrowding, do not overcrowding, like safety, children, noisiness. This is I don't want to go through all of them because your colleague mentioned it, they go 40 minutes. If it's a face-to-face, well, I'll explain all of them single by single. But I just want to waste all of the time.
Sorry, could I ask, just in terms of the Acton area, this is the first time you'll be, so are you familiar with the area and the problems within Acton?
Well, as long as I'm doing the shop fitting designing, I know the community of the area who are living and who are as the experience of the the public of the area. Yes, I know the area good. Well, I had enough information regarding the area that's why I realized to go to that area.
Could you explain what the primary problem with Acton is in terms of the licensing policy? It's been identified in the licensing policy.
Well, I know the problem of them, there is a lot of problem with the drunken people, druggers, I don't know, this kind of the things. I heard about it as the shopper's potential. The main things, potential of the customer is important for me. I joined the area. That's all.
Okay. I think I'll have some further points to raise when I get to speak later. So
That's great. Okay. Councillor Ball, have you got any questions to the applicant and his agent?
Yes. I mean, I think you kind of answered this without being asked, but I think just to make sure and be clear on it, do you have you had any contact at all with the people that previously ran this shop, the people that previously had licenses or worked at this shop over the past how many 4 years?
Did you have any kind of connections or contacts with people who were running the shop previously?
No, I just bought a shop directly from the landlord. I have no any contact. I spent almost about £30,000 to redecorate it, buy the new fridges. I don't know the other people at all.
Okay, Councillor Ball.
Yes, thank you. And the other thing, you mentioned in response to Anne Brennan's question about problems with drunken people in Acton. What, if you were granted the license, what would you do to ensure that your premises played its part to reduce that problem rather than increasing it?
Well, actually, first of all, I don't provide the alcohol alcohol during the time I've got it. If I've got a license, I'm not provide them. And secondly, I don't provide the people who, if I realize they're drunk and they came to the shop to buy one single unit, I don't provide them.
Can I say something? We have prepared a training manual for them. It has got all the information needed for following the 4 licensing objectives. You got posters to leave the area quietly, posters for CCTV, for there was like a challenge 25 posters. So everything necessary, all information needed to uphold the license objectives is there in the training manual. He is aware that he needs to train, or he's got people trained already there, and you will have more people who will obtain their personal licenses too.
And do not provide them less than a 2 bottle. Single bottle as well. And by the way, I just want to mention, which is not belong to these cases. I used to be a shop assistant in off license, even in a Clapham Junction, one of the busiest and more troublous area in London, I believe, as my experience. You can find out from the police how many times I reported drunken people. I didn't allow them to come to the shop. I didn't provide them. I've got enough experience, I believe myself.
I can't see. Councillor Jammu?
Thank you, Chair. I would actually like the applicant to explain to me what he understands by the term challenge 25.
Did you hear?
No, the voice is gone.
Can you just repeat the last sentence, please?
Yes, I'd like you to, I'd like the applicant to explain to me what he understands by the term challenge 25.
Well, actually, the people who look under the age of the 25, I will ask the ID. I never provide them.
Why do you think the challenge 25 exists?
Well,
Well,
actually, I was working in Ocado. Well, I believe all of you know the Ocado online supermarket. I had enough experience for the licensing and under the age and the ID, even when we providing online services. Even I wasn't deliver the goods to the kids if it was under the 25, if they had a delivery alcohol in their bag, shopping bag.
okay.
He may not be able to explain himself 100% correctly, but he
Asking for the ID.
Certainly does have a lot of experience in this trade. So,
Okay, Councillor Jammu?
Make sure right age is it.
that's okay.
No, I'm done, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for your answers so far. So if I understand rightly, you won't, if reminded to grant the license, you won't be serving cans of beer or cider over 5.5.
Yep.
So to sort of, and you also won't be serving miniatures. Why do you believe? Why do you think we've introduced that? Why do we believe that's a good idea?
Well, actually, it's a good point of that. Even so many times I was in the social media, I mentioned it to the police as a safety of the public, stopping miniature alcohol is one of the worst things. The drunken people keep buying a £1, £2 from the people and getting a miniature and full drunken sleeping on a road.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you very much. You've answered that. And the 5.4.
Even the 5.4, because they keep getting drunken, they get in a single time by time. They come in asking. Still is for the safety of the street and the drinking cheap alcohol, looking for the cheap alcohol to get a cheap alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Now I ask two more questions. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Thank you. Go ahead, Bob. Mr. Dear.
Does the applicant or pay business rates to Ealing Council? And the second point is, well, that's the first point you can answer for me.
Business rates.
The business is a small business. I just finished the leases. Well, I haven't provided the lease to the council yet. I'm waiting for the lease to finish. Well, actually, I informed them. Even for the waste collection. As several times I informed them by email for the business rate as well. But as much as I know about it, because of the small business, the size of I'm not at the moment. I'm not sure, but I think it's not it's not gonna have a business rate.
We can provide you with the lease and the business rates, payments, and anything that's necessary.
Yeah, for the rent payment I pay.
That may take, I think, about a month from what I read from the message from his landlady, but I think it's going to take about a month to get those signed, because we have the lease, but it's unsigned.
So the moment it's no, you don't.
No.
As of today, you're not paying the business rates. Someone else is.
Not yet. Well, no one paid. At the moment, the lease belong to me, but because it's not finished, I haven't provided. Well, which is I sent the email, but it's not, the lease is not finished. I haven't paid yet. Yeah.
Mr. Day, you might want to pick up on that. So.
Yeah, no problems. Thank you. And the last one was, do you own the company? Is it going to be a company name or your name?
It's a company name.
And that is?
Ashi and Remy UK Limited.
Sorry, Ashi and?
Remy UK Limited.
Remy.
Yeah. ASHI and REMI UK Limited.
And is that you and your business partner or business partners?
No, just me, yeah.
And you're the sole director of that company?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, let's get back on there.
Well, I had another company. If you want, I can give you the name of the other one. The one I sold it in outside London. I think you don't need it. I have a different.
No, I don't need it. No, that's fine, Mr. Darpesh. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I just need to bring up my thing. Okay. Mr. Hashmi, this is your opportunity to sort of present your case, so to speak, for having the business.
I think it's,
and obviously addressing the main concerns of the objectors. Obviously, is you might want to include that in your submission.
Sorry, were you talking to me or?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, we believe that the applicant has done everything that's necessary for this site. We're very disappointed that we have received the objection on the last day of representation, which was actually emailed to us afterwards with no questions of who this person is, whether he's got a lease, whether this or that, but the accusation was direct. No, we recommend for refusal because he's connected with the previous things. We find that well, unhelpful to be polite. Other than that, he's done everything that is needed to have this application granted. There's absolutely no justifiable reason to refuse it. Any other minor issues, they can be put in as conditions. We can have the attached to the license. We're happy to negotiate that.
Okay. Fine. Thank you. So in terms of conditions, you just brought that up now. Your conditions are outside of core hours, though. Your application is outside of core hours on at the weekend.
Okay, yeah, we're happy to reduce them. That's fine. We can.
Alison, would you be able just to confirm what the core hours are and what the applicant has applied for?
I think that the main additional hours were the weekend mornings. I think there's a requirement that premises don't open until 10 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. I'm just trying to get the relevant page. If you bear with me one minute. So that's the main the main difference in the hours asked for.
If it helps, Chair, I happen to have it open at page
Yeah.
7. We've got
Oh,
so
thank you.
it's 10 o'clock on Fridays and Saturdays and 11 o'clock on Sundays.
Okay.
Thank
We're
you,
supposed to be the
thank
start
you,
time.
councillor.
So, Mr. Hashmi, would your applicant be persuaded to go to 11 o'clock on a Sunday?
Open at 11 on Sunday.
Well, the
Talking
off
about the
license.
alcohol hours, not opening,
Yes.
yeah?
Yes.
Alcohol, yeah, that don't mind.
This is about licensed
Yes, of course. Of
activities.
course. Just wanted to ensure.
So Sunday 11 start, yeah?
Yeah.
Alcohol.
Yeah, alcohol, yeah, of course, yeah. No, this is happy that there's no objection to that, of course.
How would you meet the challenge of having the shop open and having to refuse alcohol?
We're going to have to ensure to cover all the fridges and alcohol. How they put like large posters or something that the alcohol will not be available until 11 a.m.
Sorry, I got the second part. What was the first part you would do?
We will either have to cover them completely, if that's
Have to what?
suitable.
Sorry.
Cover them.
Okay.
To cover the fridges, cover the
Yeah.
alcohol.
Shutters. Yeah.
Shutters or plastic covers that I've seen, like various different ones, whichever is more suitable, or put large posters, anything that we can to inform everyone that alcohol is not available until 11 a.m.
Yeah. And I mean, is this something you're familiar with, Mr. Hashmi, from your experience in other establishments?
Is it manageable for you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but
It is. Yeah, it is.
what did you do? Where else? Where you worked before?
Well, actually, I've got like a fridge. Is a new fridge. Is brand new. It has a curtain. I can close the porters, and as a poster mentioned the times of the selling the alcohol clearly, which do not argue with anyone. And definitely, I can manage it. How to arrange it. No one has access to the alcohol.
Okay. That's fine. Okay. Mr. Dear, have you got any other suggested conditions that?
Yeah, sorry, could I just ask a question, please, if it's okay?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the applicant, I mean, he's saying that he's worked in lots of other places, and yet he hasn't quite explained himself properly. When you've worked in other establishments, what did you do when you were, when it was not licensable hours? What did you do with the stock, or how did you disguise it?
I mean, during the out of the alcohol, selling alcohol hour, you mean?
Yes.
For alcohol, you're not meant to sell alcohol during that period. How did you communicate that with the customers? What did you tell them?
Like cover the selling area, first of all, and secondly, mention the time clearly, and I dialogue them. I will explain them. If I sell alcohol, I will lose my license, I will lose my premise, and there is no reason to argue. If they argue, I call the police. I don't want to fight them.
No need. This is step forward.
Yeah.
One more question for you.
Yeah.
What do you actually understand by what's already been stipulated a few times, 5.4?
Alcohol by volume, 5.4.
What does he understand?
The value of the 5.4 alcohol is the cheapest alcohol, and no alcohol over 5.5, which do not say, I mean, sales over 5.5 alcohol.
What does it mean? 5.4, 5.5 ABV on the bottle you normally see.
What is mean the alcohol quantity in the bottle is 5.5.
The strength of
it shouldn't be more than that. If it go over, not allowed to do it.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Right. My questions from, so really it's just a question. We've had one condition offered and agreed during these discussions, but if we could perhaps just go to the objector and the license authority to sort of make to sum up on to make their representations. So if I would go to Ms. Brennan first, please.
Okay.
Obviously, you're not obliged to, but
I would. Thank you, Chair. I would appreciate the chance to speak. My representation is on page 38 and 39. I'm quite concerned about there's a high density of, even though it's not in the special policy area, there is a high density of licensed premises in the area. It's also in a residential area as well, and that is a consideration within the licensing policy, is the residential nature of the local area. There is a lot of street drinking in the area, and I feel that the schedule, the operating schedule that was put forward in the application really didn't take into consideration. Now, I raised those in my representation. I had concerns about the starting hours, and obviously that's just been discussed and the applicant has agreed to change those. And also I listed quite clearly 13 conditions which would help. Some of them are related to sort of specific wording, to make sure it's very clear and more in line with the sort of standard wording for various conditions. The applicant or the agent made no effort to make contact with me to discuss them. And it sort of feels like the community perspective. You've mentioned your concerns about Bob Deer's comments, but you've not mentioned anything in my representation that I made. I'm used to putting in representations for the whole of Acton, and have done so for feels like a lifetime, for quite a few years. So these aren't frivolous considerations. These are genuine issues that we have in the local area of Acton. And I find it really disappointing that neither the applicant or the agent made any effort. It's made quite clear in my representation that I'm happy for the applicant to make contact. And in the main, nearly every applicant makes contact with myself and another group that often puts in representations. I would like, when I saw all the papers for the meeting, I did have concerns about the trading standard issues at that site, and I guess that's up to for the panel to decide whether they have concerns that may still be an issue, because what's important to residents is that the premises is well managed, and the fact that nobody made contact with residents, I'm representing quite a few residents, is a concern. Like your premises is close to a nursery and a primary school. There's big issues with street drinking in the area. If the applicant is that aware and concerned, I don't understand why they applied for hours that were, the starting hours were earlier than the core hours, and why some of these conditions weren't considered. The shutters, if the hours are going to be different, the licensable hours and the opening hours should be lockable. That is usually the wording that is put in. And if the panel are minded to grant a license and add that condition, I would ask that is made, that wording is made clear. But I have listed quite clearly all of the conditions, and I would like to know why the applicant didn't make any bother, didn't make any effort whatsoever to make contact, and even as earlier on has just raised Bob Deer's representation and made no real reference to my own.
Okay, I don't feel like I want to insult, add insult to injury, Anne. I'm just conscious that Mr. Dare needs to get away. So, Mr. Blessing, if you could just park Anne's question for a moment about, you know, how she believes she wasn't contacted. You can respond to that a bit later. Mr. Dare, this is going to be your opportunity to tell us everything you want to tell us, and then you can take your leave, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like firstly to say that I have read Ms. Brennan's representation and fully support the conditions that have been sought or the idea of them. I'll agree with the and I would call them. I would like to see because this premise is obviously going to open before the hours for alcohol, because on Friday and Saturday they can't, under our core hours, they won't be able to serve until 10 a.m. So there's 3 days there. So a curtain is not suitable, not good enough. I think Mr. Hyde already, Mr. Darpesh, sorry, Mr. Hyde Darpesh has already mentioned he's met some of the inhabitants of that part of Acton, and they had to call the police because he couldn't deal with them when they said they wouldn't leave the store. So I would, if you are minded to grant the license and look for a condition, it should be a lockable metal shutter. The curtain is not good enough. It will not prevent any street drinker, one, putting their hand behind the curtain, and two, if they can't do that, they'll steal it, because that's how desperate they are. In the area, it's already been mentioned, there's 7 off licenses within 250 metres. Go a little bit further, another 250 metres, there's another 7. The area is very non-compliant due to the amount of alcohol on offer there, the strength of alcohol on offer there. And I'd just like to touch very briefly on the business rates. I mentioned the business rates because the business rates have been paid and are still being paid since 2019 by a company, by the same man. There's not before you, I'd add that, and there's no mention of his name anywhere. But the same person is on the lease, and that's what's been run through these premises for the last at least 4 years that I know of. Lots of people come in, lots of people go in, different companies taking over. I've got no faith this applicant will actually stay in the area and isn't just getting a license for the premises for somebody else, because why would the person who's been paying the business rates for 3 years and who would not get a license, I can assure you, in his own name, surely, you know, due diligence, that should have been checked. So I stand by my recommendation. It should be refused because, as Ms. Brennan said, nothing of exceptional, nothing stood out in the operating schedule to me, and that's the first thing I look at. Yes, we have cameras. Those cameras are only effective if they're actually working, and they can be, and the person can download them. And we often find that when something's gone wrong, we've just found out there's been a problem with them. So I would say, Chair, my recommendation stands and refuse the license.
Okay, Mr. Blessing, Mr. Bessin, if you'd like to respond to Miss Brennan's and Mr. Deer's points, and please.
Okay. In regards to Ms. Brennan's objection, the objections were, majority of them were standard ones, so we didn't really have many issues with them. Our main problem was that the objection coming from Mr. Deer with the recommendation for refusal, and both of these objections came after the last day of representations. My understanding is that once you recommend for refusal, there isn't really much to negotiate there until the hearing, which is now. Same goes for Ms. Brannan. None of the evidence that was provided in the objections is new. The evidence is either from 2019 or whatever. There was nothing new to suggest that you needed to wait for 28 days exactly to object. If there was any attempt from either side to find out who the applicant is and what's going on, this could have been done much earlier and could have done in terms of asking questions rather than going for refusal straight away. That's really our main issue. I'm still finding it very strange that you're not giving him an opportunity to provide you with the lease and any legal documentations you may need, but you're going straight for refusal, and that's it. As for Ms. Brannan, yes, I do understand. If we didn't have this whole issue, we would have negotiated that, but we don't really have any major problems with that. I think most of the objections were quite standard, and many of them were included in our application anyway, but that's really it.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to give the opportunity there to councillors as any points they want to raise there with either Mr. Deere or the applicant and his agent.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Ball.
Yeah, thank you. So just to clarify that last exchange, would the applicant be willing to show us the completed lease prior to the license coming into force? I think the applicant said earlier on the lease isn't signed yet, awaiting the landlord's return from Ukraine. But would that be an option to have that? So that I think that would clarify Mr. Deere's point about whether the premises are genuinely in different under different ownership than the previous problematic owners. Is that something that we could require, that the licensing authority sees the lease to establish that fact?
I think, Chair,
Alison,
that we could have some kind of wording that said that licensable activity shall not commence until the licensing authority has had sight of the any lease. The difficulty then is if we're not satisfied, then what happens then? But in principle, I think we could certainly sort of, if that was a major concern, then we could require, or maybe to make it a bit wider, require within X weeks of the date of the license that the lease be provided, something like that maybe.
Can I just say that this is totally understandable, very reasonable. If you can postpone the decision until everything is provided to you, then definitely that should be the right way of.
So, when you say postpone decision, we're here today being asked to make a decision.
Yes.
But it won't. But so that's today's. It's a decision hearing. Hopefully, we'll come to a decision. But what we're asking is that it won't come into force until you.
Yes, that's what I meant. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah. Okay. But what we don't want to do, sir, is set you up with something that we don't want to set you up to fail. So you have to be what are you comfortable with? How confident are you of having the lease assigned?
How long would you need to provide?
Well, I believe all of you know the office workers paperwork between a two solicitor, one applicant and one lady land. For each landlady, for each of them, sometimes we don't agree for some term condition. I need to reply to my solicitor, and she replied to her solicitor. While take weeks. It's almost about 3-4 days ago. I received a draft of the lease, and the landlord didn't accept it, some of the condition, and she's gonna come back from the Ukrainian to remove the thing.
So given the circumstances of the fact that she's Ukrainian, so she could be tied up with different issues, and solicitors doing what solicitors do, and lawyers doing what lawyers do. You can't be confident that you'll get it within 28 days or any time frame. So the only condition I would be willing to entertain is that, and your licensable activities does not start until the lease is assigned. So you produce the lease, your license starts.
All right. Yeah, that's fine. I can do.
That's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
Fine. Alison, with that, do we need to?
Yes, I think in principle that's fine. It's almost you see in planning sort of negatively worded conditions, and I think that would be quite acceptable here.
Yeah, fine. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Jammu. I mean, I'm not here to sweat things. I'm just conscious to give everybody the opportunity to ask questions.
I have no more questions for the applicant, Chair. I think we ought to deliberate and.
Yeah, fine. So yes, that's it. So if there's any more, this is the time. Anybody else want to express anything?
Two things.
Yeah,
two things, if I may, Chair. Just number one, is Bob's ear happy with that condition in terms of the his concerns? Does that address his concern?
He may have left.
No, I'm still here, Chair. Sorry. It's as you said, it's a very hard condition to word for obvious reasons with the present situation where it is. It's just that I would prefer a stable tenant, i.e. one that has got a 5-10 year lease, it's in writing, and we know who he is. And actually, I'm sure our business rates people would like that as well. So they want to come and collect any money off him.
Totally agree with Bob.
I agree with that. I've got 10 years leases. Sorry, I'm going to that. Yeah, I've got 10 years leases.
Which is, to sign it.
Yeah, just I need to sign it.
Sorry, second question, if I may, Chair.
Yep.
I've listed 13 conditions. Only 2 of them were actually referenced in the operating schedule by the applicant or agent. And I want to ask, are they willing to accept all of those conditions in addition to the hours agreed?
Yes, I will.
Okay, so just again, they're all very meaningful, and they're very, I understand that they'll have good outcomes, but equally, I don't want you to set up to fail. So, I mean, there's clearing the litter, item 10. And there's noise, no deliveries or waste recycling collections between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. So nothing in the evenings, and nothing till. Yeah. Okay. And about clearing litter.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I informed the council actually for a waste collection. They're gonna send me the baggers and rubber band for the bins and the cardboard. Okay.
Yeah. Best service you can have, I'm sure, is from the council. Okay. Fine. So yeah, obviously you get the last right of reply, the applicants and the agent. Is there anything else you'd like to say in response before we, as members, go and deliberate?
We're happy to do whatever it takes for this application to be granted. We'll provide you with any other legal documentations that is required. Only the timing is a bit of an issue, but as long as we can go ahead with issuing the license, but obviously not to be enforced until that is provided, then we're happy.
Okay. Thank you very much. So it's 16:13. So we are going to break now. There is some, so it's going to be, I'm going to state a time. It may seem a bit late, but I would anticipate us to be back in an hour, because I have something I have to do. So I'm going to deliberate, make the decision, word it, but then I have to go, and I'll be back at 17:15. But obviously it's only me that needs to be here for the decision anyway. So
does the applicant have to be here?
No. The only person that needs to make to state the decision is me, and I guess the clerk and the legal advisor. Failing that, nobody else needs to be here. But yeah, you'll come back to this room, and then you'll be invited back into the room, and then we'll go live. Okay. Thanks very much. I believe Sam, are you the man on the buttons? You're back, Keith. Hi. Yeah, if you could sort of get people to exit the room, and it's just you the councillors and Alison.
Sorry, Chair. I'll be able to come back at 15:15 to find out the decision.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, we can. Just stop the live stream now.